Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the podcast. For now, it's named Gamer Counselors. We might come or settle with a new name in the future as we find our voice through the journey. So this is actually the beginning of our journey. Um, my name is Gorgon Ng, and I am a counselor in New Zealand. And join with me today is there's two hosts, and I will let them introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Alex.
Fantastic. Hi, so my name's Alex Coton, and I'm a game developer and half-baked psychotherapist. I'll tell you more about that later, but I practiced as a therapist and was somewhat trained. That's me.
Right, thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Simon.
And my name's Simon Calder. I'm also a counsellor. Registered counsellor, and I go to school. And it's what Gorgon mentioned. I'm into my games and my other anime and so forth. But you'll get to know more about me later.
Oh, thank you, Simon. So before we actually get into the juicy discussion of the content and the meat of this episode, we would like to have to give you a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is that the content, discussion, and opinion mentioned in this podcast is one of the host, our own personal perspective, and does not represent our employer's perspective. This is not a supplement or a replacement for therapy, but a forum for discussion for individuals who practices therapy and or in the geek topics. So if you need further support, by all means, go and search up your local mental health support. I'm sure that you will be able to find a lot of resources on there. That is all. And sit back, relax, and let's embark on the new journey together in this podcast. So today's discussion is about how the three of us, how our life has been kind of inspired, or shaped by video games or movies, fictional character, and we'll be sharing a little bit about our journey and how those content help us. And we shall start with Alex.
Oh, thanks, Gorgon. Thanks, Simon. So I'll start by painting a bit of a background, tell you a bit more about myself. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a game developer. That wasn't my first job. I had a bit of a tortuous path to game development.
Mm-hmm.
But very roughly, I studied engineering. I had a few different engineering jobs, and then eventually I ended up working in London and getting into game development at King, the mobile games maker. So that's the Candy Crush company.
Wow.
And so that's my game background. And then in the realm of therapy, I did study psychotherapy in London while I was working. I've always had an interest in psychotherapy since about the age of 21 because of roughly life experiences. But I mean, I had a long period and subsequent periods of depression in my early 20s. So this led me into an interest in my own personal development, and I eventually ended up studying psychotherapy. I worked for Samaritans in London, which is a free to call counselling line. And I also practiced at a low-cost counselling centre for a year before getting back in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit about me. And now I'm going to tell you about how games and comic books influenced my life and my life trajectory, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I checked the dates on some of these things before I came into this podcast, and I know that I I'd definitely seen comic books before I saw video games, because the first console I had was the Sega Master System 2. And prior to that, I was really, really, I really loved the character Batman. So I think even in a subconscious, at a time in my life where I didn't even know who the character was. When I was 3, I was given a Batman cape by a godmother who had obviously read the comic books, and perhaps would have seen the TV show, the campy 1960s TV show.
Wow.
And yeah, I was given this Batman cape without even knowing really who he was, but I used to wear it at nursery school and run around and tell everyone I was the king of the castle.
Oh,
So
that's
there was
cute.
something seeded quite early there in my childhood with Batman. So you can imagine my how my little brain exploded when a Batman movie was released in 1989, the first one with Michael Keaton, and I saw the Batmobile and Batman in real life as a cool kind of dark character. Saw the Joker, and I can't remember whether Kim Basinger was in that one. That was Catwoman. But yeah, it was huge for me, and I was just like, I had the playing cards, and I watched the movie over and over again. Yeah, Batman was a huge influence and continued to be into my adulthood, to be honest. And I'll tell you more about that now. Looking now that I've understood like a lot of Batman's appeal, like there are obviously YouTube videos all over the place explaining like the kind of the lore and the mythology behind Batman, why Batman and the Joker make such good opponents. I've had some time and a chance to reflect on I guess Batman's archetype and how I can relate to him. And roughly, like, one of the main things I assisted with in his character from a young age was this kind of need to be in control. Like, he is a control freak, and he's a kind of self-righteous control freak as well. Like, he's kind of
But
he
that's
sees
true.
the world as twisted by crime, and he takes it upon himself. Like, he's like, I'm the only person who can fix this. So he's like running around Gotham, like playing whack-a-mole, like
Yep.
trying to take out these supervillains and not even killing them, like just putting them in Arkham Asylum, which is it's all perfectionist, isn't it? It's like it's such a I can really relate to this perfectionist attitude and need to be in control and self-righteousness. It's definitely a part of my personality that I've had to come to grips with. Yeah.
So it seems. Oh, sorry, but it seems like Batman's he understands it, but he's trying to do good with it though, rather than hurting people or making it worse. If that makes sense, like he understands that side of him, but he tries to do good.
Yeah. What I really love about his character is that he recognizes this side of his personality, or at least I guess you're led to believe he's aware of it, but that he leans fully into it. And whether he realizes that he's sort of exploring it as a shadow because he's kind of split off into two characters or not, he's experiencing it and deciding to go down this path fully, which I really like the idea of, like, if there's something that you fear and that holds you back or blocks you in your life, like really lean into it as much as it's safe. And it's as well, it wasn't safe for him, but to learn from, to grow from.
I think well, that's a very good point that you bring up. That it's that Batman learns from the fear and turn it into some sort of control that he can use to do the Gotham good.
Yeah, so it's sort of almost turning his crutch into a superpower, or his side of his personality. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely something that we can talk about in the future episode. The whole archetypes of Batman and the fear. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, Simon's already touched on it. Like, there's another part of his personality. I'll touch on two more parts of Batman. The first part is that I really relate to is this shadow. This idea of the things that are repressed that people project onto other people. These things they can't imagine themselves doing. That he lives out as as this symbol of darkness. Literally he like lurks in the shadows and lives out, experiences those things. So I can relate to that hugely as well, because I've had a lot of experience, like I alluded to earlier, with going through depression, working through relationship issues, and coming to understand some of my relational issues as addiction issues. I can really relate to. Having pushed away parts of my personality, or them being there anyway and not being explored. And once I brought them out into the light, for example, if I had a lot of resentment towards someone for something they did, it was usually something I was not acknowledging in myself. Like the need to control. That was a really good one. If I ever found someone trying to control any situation that I was involved with, it would drive me absolutely insane. And then it's because it's in my shadow and is explored more now. But yeah, it took a lot of work to do that.
Good observation.
And then the last thing with Batman that I really associated with was his generally being sort of an outcast, outsider, sort of, he was a guardian protector, but he was always on the outskirts. And so I have spent periods of my life in various ways avoiding being completely a part of a group or involved in a relationship. And one of those ways is I've made myself a leader of groups, by which I've not allowed myself to be fully engaged with them. For example, in men's groups. And I've anyone who practiced as a therapist or counselor will know about the term rescuing. In rescuing someone, I've tended to not really be engaged with them on an even level, like more of a I'm here to help you, and you need fixing, etc. So
that's quite powerful.
Yeah. So that's Batman. And now we get to the games. So games side of things. Well, I mean, I've played games on and off from the age of about 8, I think, and those are talking about computer games, but even before that, sports and card games, making handycam videos and inventing imaginary scenarios or scenarios with toys with my little brother. So yeah, I've I'd say I've had kind of a love addiction with games my entire life. And what that's taught me 3 important things about life, and what I've learned through that lens anyway. The first one is I have sort of an engineering mind, so I was always curious about how things worked. So when I started to play around with games and computers, games was a nice way for me to learn a bit more about how computers worked, and because back in the day, it's like copy things on floppy disks, and you had to know how to do a bit of command prompt stuff and unzip things.
A lot of the times, the games are installed in the computer, and that's all you had.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. MS-DOS games, yeah. And then obviously, as an adult, I've become a game developer. So I've really taken a lot of that learning and all the learning that I made at throughout school, anything that was physics, science related, and English actually, because there's a lot of story writing in games, in some games. I've taken that into adulthood and used to further my skills in game development. So that's been really cool for me. Then on the other side, on the kind of use of games, I have always been like a team player. I always loved playing with my brother and friends, whether outdoors or indoors. My parents often had to force me outdoors if I'd spend too much time playing video games on the weekend when I was a young kid. But games really taught me about the joy of competition and collaboration, and I liked both types of games. Like I loved fighting games from the first time I saw Street Fighter. I was just like, oh my God. Every time I saw a Street Fighter machine, I would throw my money at it. Like I didn't care how much it was. I just wanted to play and play with other people. To, later on, um, collaborative games. These days, I still like to play games where I'm paired up with or in a group with someone else. Like I'm playing Gunscore and Cannoli at the moment. Um, yeah, yeah. There's loads of games that I play, and I tend to enjoy playing them with other people. Um,
Well, Alex, just gonna interrupt
yeah.
you there for a moment. You mentioned about the competition way of playing games, especially with the Street Fighter machine.
Mm,
How is that different from the other collaborative gaming that you play that in terms of the environment?
competitive games versus collaborative games.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, early on, like with Street Fighter, the environment was always out in public. So it was I could play often with my younger brother because we went everywhere together, and video stores if anyone remembers those, and the old video games entertainment centers. God, I loved those. Yeah, I could stay in those the whole weekend. Um, and then, but also I used to play a lot of competitive games at home on consoles with my friends. Uh, these days, when I play collaborative games, so it was the same back then. I used to play collaborative games in front of a computer with friends as well. Does that kind of answer your question? Or are we looking for something a bit deeper?
Yeah, well, that's kind of answer, yeah, the question, because I'm coming from the I guess perspective of in the past when you play game like in the center that, like I say, it's a public space.
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to at home when you're playing with other players. I'm just curious if there's any big difference for you.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess the only difference that really stood out to me was that the public environments tended to be more kind of less safe, if you will. Like I didn't have as much control over who was going to challenge me. So I would often find in a fish and chip shop or whatever that like the older boys would be much better at
Yeah.
the games than me, and they kind of thrash me out. And so I might sometimes get my brother to stand next to me so no one else could play with me.
That can be frustrating. Oh yeah. Well, thanks. Thank you for allowing my interruption there.
Yeah, I really like it. Very introspective. Very introspective.
Cool.
Yeah.
I got one more thing. Will I finish that off?
Yeah, go.
Lastly, on games, I sort of relating again to the archetypes. I noticed in my sort of teens, early 20s that I liked. Well, I did love playing games with other people. I was the single player games that I used to play a lot of tended to be these kind of lone hero type games. So someone who's characters that are kind of either isolated or trying to do things on their own. And so Metroid, for example, was one of my favorite games. I really loved Resident Evil 4, and don't try to tell me that Leon didn't try to finish that whole game on his own. And yeah. Anyway, you get the idea that yeah, of course, my favorite game of all time, The Legend of Zelda, like the young boy hero's
Almost
journey.
forgot it.
Yeah.
That's classic.
So, yeah, and I think all the games I just mentioned, they're epic games. That's one of the reasons I love them so much. Obviously, they're so well designed, but also like I think again like I can really relate to that lone warrior type character or the hero's journey, like needing to go off on his own or their own to really find their own way, overcome challenges, and hopefully grow from the process. So yeah, so one of my favorite games was the Wind Waker, the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Metroid Prime game. The first one was fantastic. Yeah.
Well, I haven't played that
Yeah.
game myself, but interesting.
Yeah, I've never played any Zelda games, eh? I'm hopefully to get a Wii.
Yeah.
Play one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good console to go with. Like some of the games, that control scheme for Wii makes some of those games incredible. Yeah.
Okay.
That's nice.
Mm.
No, thank you, Alex.
No,
Cool,
that was good. Yeah, enjoyed that. Get to know a bit of you and the games you like. Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you guys have any questions?
No, it seems like it's like there's a lot of multiplayer, there's fighting, there's collaboration, but there's also single player. And no, I'm good. That was quite good to hear. Yeah.
No.
Cool.
No, I just yeah, I'm just paying attention of the theme that might come out in this discussion. So I think I will wait until everyone has shared and ask those questions about, what are the themes that we can pick out from each other and talk about that. So then that's a good segue to Simon. Tell us more about you.
So I'm Simon, as I mentioned previously. But about me, okay, where to start? I've always enjoyed games. I think as a kid, this is a story I was told, but not necessarily video games, just playing. I would have my imaginary worlds. And sometimes I'll get frustrated with my friends because they can't see the imaginary world where I could see, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is when I was pretty young, by the way. And to the point where my nana would sit me in a spot in the lounge, and I have two older brothers. They would go back to their thing, and I'll just sit in the whole day without moving, just playing with cars, just some cars. I'll be really quiet, really like docile, and she'll come and give me food, and I'll just sit there in my own sort of world. I guess for me, it's more like a world thing, or it started that way. And yeah, I think there's a bit of that infatuation on that sort of the world side as well as the gaming side. And we have one I would like to talk about initially. Is quite big in my childhood and adolescence is Dragon Ball Z. So that's more of an anime. Well, it isn't, and it's also a video game, but it's an anime. Yeah, and I thought to share something like that because that really inspired me as a youth. But similar to what Alex was saying, like Batman, but obviously Dragon Ball Z is very different. I didn't have any particular characters I was really aligned to, like maybe Vegeta, but that's not initially at the start. It was more the sense of, well, these guys are so powerful they can destroy a world, but they're saving the world. They're working together to fight this evil who's come onto the planet, and they have such strength that not just a building will blow up, but a whole world. So the power, I guess, with that. And the transformations they do in Dragon Ball Z really sort of inspired me, that grit, that perseverance. Because I think I had a lot of difficulty when I was, not a lot of difficulty, but I had some difficulty when I was a kid, and especially around, I think, and I'm fine talking about this, dyslexia. So they didn't really believe it was a thing when I was young, until she finished high school. And so I would go to more imagery things and word, like reading or anything like that. So comics or anime and video games were the things I was drawn to. And that was a bit of a thing I had to learn perseverance through. So I liked how Goku wouldn't just give up. He'll keep pushing through. And that's something really inspired me to do something like that. On a lot lower scale than powering up to Super Saiyan. But maybe in my head, it might be like, I got to get this done, even though it's really hard to read this and all that. But I have to get this done, whatever it might be. So I guess align myself to those characters, and they never really that perseverance side of things. So yeah, so that's why I think it was so inspirational for me, and the character development throughout the well, it does focus mainly on Goku, but it's also other areas like Vegeta. It was there's that room for I guess forgiveness, and then brought him to the team, and then to the point where he's the co-leader of the group.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that redemption side of things, and that we all have mistakes, we all muck up, but we can all have that sort of redemption side of things as well. We can all be forgiven in that way. So yeah, I really like that aspect. That's probably me reflecting on it. I wasn't so conscious of it when you're going through it, if that makes sense, when you're as a kid, as a teenager. Yeah, I might ask you guys questions. Did you guys watch Dragon Ball Z? Or is it just me?
It was minimally for me. I was too busy watching Batman.
So
Like,
yeah,
it was a toss-up between Dragon Ball Z or Batman or Spider-Man, so you stole Batman from me, so there we go.
Did you actually mean to start with Batman?
No, Dragon Ball Z was like, it was a thing longer through my childhood, but Batman was definitely a big thing. It was between Batman and Spider-Man. I probably didn't think of myself as so much as a leader as Batman. That's why I'm probably more drawn to Spider-Man. He's a bit more quirky, he's a bit more behind the scenes than Batman. Different universe as well. But yeah, Dragon Ball Z was the TV series when I was young, was continued until. Don't talk about GT, just Dragon Ball Z.
Z. Okay. Yeah, the OG, the original ones.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially, yeah, I've already gone over that. And there's two other things, or like two games. So I remember playing like GoldenEye with my neighbors and my brother and my cousins. But a big part of games I really enjoyed was, and that was sort of like a collaboration, but like what you're talking about, Alex. But I never went to actually those arcades. Sadly, we didn't have any around our vicinity, and every time we did was so busy that our parents didn't really want to hang around for too long. So we never really get started.
They tended to be in pretty rough places as well. I reckon. Like it wasn't exactly the safest thing to for kids to do. You know, if you're a teenager, I think you're pretty safe. But.
Yeah, and my probably parents didn't want to reinforce that. Like, oh, you do enough that at home. Like, we're not gonna wait around while you do that. So, it wasn't seen as something like fun in their eyes, I guess. But I missed that, so I completely missed it. So, but so I always gamed with my cousins. If I gamed with anyone, if it wasn't by myself, it would be my cousin or my brothers, because we had nothing was online. So it always was collaboration in that way. Until high school, I got introduced to Halo 3 and into the Xbox. I know online was before that, but that really opened the doors of collaborating with unknown people, like people I've never met and never seen before. These are strangers, so I've always probably been a bit shy when I was young. I was quite shy. I was quite anxious. So meeting new people is a big thing, especially online. It's like, whoa, this is, and then you keep meeting them and you become friends with them. It's like probably that's when I started. Just like when it became new, like gaming online was quite a new thing. So yeah, Halo 3 was something I was able to collaborate with and compete with others I've never met before. I did eventually actually meet them in real life, in person. But that was something to see that there's that competitiveness of video games, because before that it was more like stories or just sort of playing around and able to compete with the computers on a sort of a world scale, not like like proper competitions, but so sort of that sense of sort of powerfulness, I guess, in me. Yeah, so that video, those Halo series was quite a big influence, especially around the sci-fi of things. So yeah, and I like to finish off with one last game, and this is more around learning. So as I mentioned before, dyslexia, I'd struggle be entertained or be even drawn to any kind of reading and writing kind of aspect of school. Especially it was quite old school. We didn't have laptops or anything. And I found a lot of learning I was getting is through video games. And I was finding like Age of Empires 1 and 2. I learned a lot of history because a lot of it was based off sort of history. And I wasn't good at remembering dates or anything, but when I played a video game, I remember these certain dates because that's that level when I play blah, 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 if that makes sense. Especially Age of Empires 2.
But you would actually recall specific facts and dates from the game, not just the general experience of it, but you could actually...
Yeah.
How do you understand that? Like, how does it sort of enter your brain?
Because I played the stage when I played a stage, so you might be like a pitch battle or something, or you might have to be Charlemagne, and Charlemagne has to fight against this. So they were going off true historic themes, but like Rome Total War. But obviously the game mechanics is very different from history. But beforehand, it would give a blurb, like maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs about the actual history, and it will have a bit of cartoon as well with it.
Wow.
So when I was playing it, I was inspired, and of course I remember that. That's the maybe stage I was really struggled with because I always push it up harder and harder, like the harder difficulty. So I really remember that because I really remember being encapsulated in that environment. So Age of Empires 2 didn't just have just when you fight the computer, you could also go alongside a campaign. Or, so that with Rome Total War and all that really helped me get actually interested in history, and then I started to do classic studies and so forth, and there's other little things around Tropico and all that got me into like what is like democracy and what is like nationalism, what is this, what is communism and all that. So so I've realized that video games could also be an avenue for a lot of learning as well, especially when it's fun.
So it's very engaging emotionally as well, sounds to me, and that kind of hook you into the learning bit.
And then you'll be able to remember it better.
Yeah,
I can relate to that bit as well, actually. That I don't remember a huge number of educational games being much fun, but I remember Carmen Sandiego. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that,
No.
which was all about this sort of detective on the spy internationally. And I did actually pick up a lot of geography from that game, and it wasn't that I was specifically interested in geography. It's just that later when I got to school, people could mention specific points of interest, like Eiffel Tower or whatever, these wonders of the world, etc. And I'd be like, I know where that is, and before that I'd never taken an interest in geography at all.
And I learned a lot about Greek mythology through as well. And they're like, how do you know this? And I'm like, well, it goes right back to the video games.
Yeah, and I guess as a gamer myself, I do relate to those things as well. For me, I came from Malaysia, and playing video games in English, not everyone play that. So a lot of time, a lot of my vocabulary, I actually pick it up on games, like Red Alert 2, Red Alert, StarCraft. So a lot of those words that sometimes I use, people will say, where do you learn that language from? Oh, it's from the game. Yeah, so it's the overtime. Yeah, it's being exposed to it. It really helps with those learning. So definitely.
This is a good segue to know a bit more about you then, eh, Guggen?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
It's a good segue.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So now a good sec. Any question for Simon, Alex, before we come into me?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I'm of a slightly more mature generation than both of you two gentlemen, and I'm often curious about your experience of gaming, being that I think you were both there when games had already a lot of the online functionality built in. So Simon, you were talking about making friends online, etc. And I'm just curious. Did that make it a whole lot easier for you, do you think, to socialize, being that you were a shy child, or was it kind of just par for the course because that's how everyone did it? Like,
Well, for me, when I got into it, I think I was from a bit of a countryish high school, so not that many people. Maybe it's just a bit of high school. We were getting into online gaming. If it's anything, it was just LAN, come over for LAN nights or anything. But it was more of a new thing when I was in high school. I think maybe. Oh, so I'm born in '88, so high school, early 2000, I think. So I don't know when it really came on big online multiplayer games. But at least for me and my friends, it was sort of a new thing. But it would be a big step to do it with strangers. It was just you just do it with your friends, and that's it, basically.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved the LAN parties.
Yeah.
That was a good way to sweat your weekend away in the dark.
Yeah, junk food and just a whole lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, it taught me a lot about healthy eating.
Yeah, well, it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And organizing. There's always like half of the time is getting everyone organized.
Yeah, the LAN party. Yeah, we don't have that much of LAN, I guess, gaming back in Malaysia. And a lot of time, I think that's where we actually game with our friends, is at either cyber cafes or we have this comic book shop near our area where they set up like 4 or 5 PS1 at a time. And people can just pay hourly, like a cyber cafe, that you can play things like Mario Karts, and that's the sort of game with friends. So that was how to answer well, in a way, your question as well, Alex, because I think both me and Simon are born in the same year, same age. So that's how we actually, at least in Malaysia at that time, how we managed the whole collaborative friend gaming sessions. Yeah.
I would have loved that. I just had too many friends with video games consoles, so I didn't have to go to cafes.
Yeah, that's a whole different experience there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add on to Simon?
Look, I would say a lot of times it's not necessarily just video games. For me, it's play. It's play. And I'm quite playful with my friends, and so I think I was more introduced to play, and then I was introduced to the collaboration, and then the storytelling, and then it's slowly over time there's different aspects of play as well: competitive, collaborating, just solo. But for me, games is more around play and exploring. Yeah. If I had to sum it up. But I think I could talk a long time about video games and all that, so I don't want to take up too much time now.
No, well, we can always have an episode on play and video games, and just unpack the whole psychology of play and how we learn from play. But that's a topic for another day.
There's one question for you both. Do you both use Steam for your PC gaming?
Yep.
Do you categorize your games? And if so, which category has the largest number of games in it by genre?
I don't categorize it, but it'd be, to be storytelling, to be sort of action, RPG. What's it? Action adventure games with storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For myself, I do well. The first thing that came to my mind is RPG, as well. So role playing kind of game, and I do like strategy and simulation game too. So there's a bit of playing there as well, like a simulation. How is it like in a real life experimenting stuff. So the Sims, things like the Sims 4, Flight Simulator. Those are some of some of the thing that I enjoy that I would like to do in real life, but might not be able to do that. So a lot of the RPG, and simulation games, I would say. Mm-hmm.
And Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. First-person shooters has the most games in it for me, but I think that's just because there are more first-person shooters than any other genre, probably.
It's true.
And then the second in line would be the run and gunners, because I really love. There's a whole swathe of really good run and gun games coming out. There's like Gun Score and Cannoli, Metal Slug, those types of games.
Can you explain run and gunners again?
They're the kind of side-scrolling platformers where you're usually collaborating with one or more people. Shooting enemies to get to the big boss at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Metal Slug is probably the most significant, well-known one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's Duck Game and what else? Yeah. Anyway.
Nice. Well, yeah. So before I go and talk about myself, anything else to add to the table, Simon and Alex?
No, we want to hear you. We want to hear what you have to say, Colgan.
So just keep this in mind, because as one of the perks of going last is that I'm able to, I guess, listen to both of your story and find maybe themes around gaming and what kind of attracts you when you're growing up. So what I have picked up so far is the sense of belongingness, being connected to other people, and the concept of PvP and co-op games. So so I'll go into my story right now. I'll start off with anime actually. Growing up in Malaysia, I watches a lot of anime. And before anime, there are Power Rangers and Ultramans. So those are cartoons that I grew up with. So, and again in the past, there's this gender stuff where boy, obviously you will like things that's fighting and whatnot. At least in Malaysia, it's quite I guess clear cut. So naturally, I got exposed to Naruto. One of the biggest series in I guess in the anime / manga realm. And what actually hooked me to it is the whole theme on belongingness and being connected to, or wanting to connect to people, and being seen as a person. Why I say it hooked me in is because if you have watched Naruto, you will know that Naruto is very draggy. You need to be very perseverant to actually finish a story. So it by itself is a challenge, watching Naruto.
It's a bit like Dragon Ball Z when they're charging. You get like, episodes.
I was more interested in the Naruto video game than the TV show, remember?
I've never watched Naruto, by the way.
Never watched what, sorry?
Naruto.
Naruto. Oh,
Naruto.
yeah,
Naruto.
yeah. Well, you can start watching Naruto. But no. So because of theme of being belong, it really push me or motivates me to find out what happened. What happened in the end for Naruto. Because Naruto is about this well, just a little bit side track here, but Naruto is this boy, a ninja, whom he has this demon monster being sealed in him, so making the whole village hating him for who I guess he is, the vessel for a demon monster. So so as we all can assume is that he really grew up as an orphan because his parents actually sacrificed themselves to save the town by sealing the demon monster in him. So he was hated. He wanted a lot of attention from the village by making a lot of mischievous thing, like vandalism and just a lot of naughty things just to get people's attention because people are shunning him away. So, so the whole anime show the character progress, character development of Naruto from how him being a shunned boy to a hero at the end of the season. But what really catch me is not the character of Naruto. It's one of the character named Sai. He is a dark kind of character, mainly because of how he's belonging. No, so sorry, how he is developed. The childhood development is for him because he was trained as an assassin and he had to kill his best friend in order to survive. Yeah, so and he is quite lonely in that sense as well. And growing up, I don't really have a lot of friends, and so that actually really draw me in to to actually wanted to know what will happen to these two characters, that they are so lonely but at the same time they're trying so hard to fit in, and that gets me going in terms of I guess surviving high school with just one friend.
So
Yeah.
is Naruto enemies with Sai?
Pardon?
Was Naruto enemies with Sai?
No.
Is that
So no,
Were they
they're not
friends?
enemy. They're actually comrades. So in that sense,
Okay.
Sai came in later in the series to be in the same team as Naruto, and Naruto is the one who kind of changes Sai's perspective, and I like how Sai always use smile as a way of being warm because he is very technical, and and if you were to diagnose, obviously we are not trained in that, but if you were to diagnose, Sai has a very typical, I guess, autistic characteristic in terms of reading verbal cues and taking things literally, just from that aspect. Yeah, so that, yeah, that has a very big impact influence in my own lens working with people or talking to people. Yeah, so and because of that, which leads me to the game that influenced me the most, that is Ragnarok Online, which is an MMORPG. So it's a massively multiplayer online game. Yeah, that is a game where I finally was able to play with a lot of my friends during high school. And I wasn't the best student at school. I do truant, run away from school, go to a nearby cyber cafe, and play Ragnarok Online with friends. Because at that time, the modem that we have at home is the dial up. I'm not sure if you remember those times.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely remember that. Yeah, it wasn't suitable for online gaming.
Oh,
Teachers' patience. Teachers.
yes.
Especially if your mum picked up the phone halfway through the game.
Yeah, and I was like, oh no, mom, get off the phone. I'm gaming here.
You're ruining my life.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm dying in
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, it would kill you. Yeah.
Yeah, kill my character. So with the whole Naruto and Sai discourse and story in my mind, I get to, I guess, leave out how it might be like as a ninja in Ragnarok Online, because it's a role-playing game, and it's a game where you can play with other people. And there comes the choice of me. So what class and what what job do I want to be in this game, Ragnarok Online? So the typical one is, of course, the warrior or the knight, and then there's magician, range, and I don't know if it's because I'm the elder brother in my family. I naturally go towards the knight, because they say that knight has a tough defense. You get to protect people. So that game they open up my understanding of that kind of archetypes. I like to be the protector. I like to take damage for people. And as I played through it, I realized that it doesn't fulfill me in a way, and I started to venture into the healer type character. So I've kind of played the role of a priest or acolyte in that game, mainly on healing people to support. And then after a while playing it, I find myself thinking to myself that, hey, this is not very fulfilling as well. I want to be, I want to protect and heal at the same time. And that's when they, Ragnarok Online, after a few months, introduced this character called Paladin. So it's combining both warrior type and the healing type. And that is where I found okay, this is it. And and this concept, this archetype be thinking, well, of course, at that time, I wasn't thinking about archetypes. I'm just thinking about the character itself. But thinking back, it's through this idea and concept from Naruto wanting to belong and do whatever that, and Sai to do whatever that they can to persevere to reach their goal, and me be able to role play it in a game, so Ragnarok Online, that helps me through a lot of self-esteem moment when I was in university, when I was doubting myself. So it's visualizing that, okay, I am this character, the paladin. What do I need now to get through this emotional turmoil? So it does play a very powerful role in me finding myself. And that's why I'm a counselor, I guess. That's where I get the calling that, I like to be the healer. But that is
the warrior.
And the warrior, yeah. To take damage. Yeah. So
I'm curious when you mentioned that you playing Ragnarok, and neither the warrior character or the healer character were kind of satisfying in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Did you identify why that was? Like, what was it that was kind of lacking in one or the other?
Yeah, I think it's the complexity of both jobs in terms of what it does in the game. So as a warrior, there's really nothing much you need to do. You just go right in front of the monster. You just provoke the monster, and the monster will attack you, and you're just there taking damage, and maybe just normal attack. So there isn't a lot of complexity in terms of playing the game. So it's quite easy in that sense.
It actually sounds somewhat like martyrdom as well.
Yeah. What? Sorry, martyrdom.
The way you described it, anyway, it sounds somewhat martyrdom. Like, I'm gonna stand in front of you and take all the damage for you.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. What you want,
With martyrdom, you get all the fame with it, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's you're the frontliner. But it can be very boring, because over time I feel like, this is just not enough. And that's why I tried healer type. Yeah.
Okay. And then why healer type? Same thing was I followed with Alex's questioning. Why do you think the healer type on itself wasn't fulfilling in that way?
Well, yeah, because
the warrior one was like hack and slash and was a bit straightforward. So what? And when you try the healing one, but do you sort of miss that sort of side of things, or why was the healing thing alone wasn't enough?
Yeah. Because part of it is don't get me wrong. Both of them at the beginning, it's very satisfying. This is new. This is what I meant to do. But eventually, playing healer type for a while, I realized that that I'm very weak as a priest and as a healer. I can't take damage. And if I die, it will harm the whole team, the whole party success, because a lot of time the support is as important as the tanker and the DPS, especially in MMORPG. So I thought of, yeah, at that time I was just playing default until I was being given the chance of playing a paladin, because like I say, paladin doesn't come into the game after later. Yeah. And that's where I thinking, hey, I like knight, I like healing, why not try paladin? And that's where I felt like, you know what, yeah, this is okay. I'm not as powerful as a priest in terms of healing, and at the same time I'm, yeah, actually, as a warrior, as a knight, I think paladin plays a good role as well. The only downside is the healing is not as strong. So, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so you can sort of do both, but you can't do both perfectly.
Perfectly,
But you can
yes.
still have that strength and still have that healing side and rescuer side of things as well,
Yes,
like a
yes,
balance.
yes.
And it's quite cool that the game came up with that word paladin. It seems like you're still remembering it. You're still like, oh, they gave me that word. It describes exactly what I wanted.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes. Yeah, that does plays a big role. Yeah, and that's the first time I've ever learned about paladins. Yeah, and
And there we go. You're learning as well.
exactly. And Ragnarok builds on, I don't think it's Greek mythology. I think it's
No, it's Norse.
Norse. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that itself is, it's another window to a world where I guess growing up in Malaysia, that doesn't really we are not being exposed to this mythology. So that's where I learned that, okay, that's more than just, Malaysian Chinese culture. That's other part of the world as well.
So introduced quite different cultural backgrounds as well as mythologies of different societies that you never had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That's me. Yeah.
I think well, at least for me, the internet wasn't so prominent back when I was young that I could just click anything and I just research anything, if that makes sense. So I think that's why video games is really helpful, is that they allowed that gate, the opportunity that you could find yourself through and do your own research. And the internet was there, but it, like Alex was mentioning, when the dial-up was happening, no one else could be on the phone. So it's just short snippets and it's very slow and very you couldn't just go to 100 different sites within 10 minutes or something,
That's
if you're
true.
just waiting for one site, come on, did I get the right one? Oh no.
There was a whole generation of parents who were just infuriated by dial-up internet because all their teenage children were hogging the phone line.
Yeah. And everyone, the generation knows that noise.
Yeah, it's classic. Memorable. Nah.
But
yeah.
I really liked I really like how you sort of found that I guess vocation in that way in the MMORPG, and that was given to you and you're like, oh, perfect, and reaching on to your vocation now.
Yeah, well, it takes a long journey to get here, I believe, and it all comes back down to playing is part of learning, and life is part of learning as well. Yeah.
What do you guys think about the idea that archetypes are quite a lot of people understand or vaguely understand archetypes, and at a kind of a base level, some people can even associate to a pop culture figure or character, through an archetype. So, I mentioned Batman earlier, for example. He's a dark knight or a shadow warrior or whatever you want to call it. What do you guys think about the idea that people can really be, I guess, their personalities can be kind of surmised by just one, very strongly one archetype, or is it often more that they have a kind of a spread of a few archetypes in their personality? Like what do you guys think about it?
I was actually reading today about it's called parasocial interactions, and that's when like a fan is interacting with could be maybe Batman, or could be maybe someone in real life. But to answer your question, I think obviously people have different archetypes and different aspects of their personality, but then they could also have that sort of fan base that they sort of in themselves see themselves as not I am Batman, but that could be me, or that could be, and then they start living their life through that as well. And sometimes it can turn into an unhealthy way. But yeah, I think Jungian, I haven't read him for a while, but there's always that through us, because that's how we sort of come to this world is through some kind of archetypes, through storytelling, and we develop our own identity through that, in our father or mother and so forth, because they're archetypes as well.
Yeah.
So we all have a bit of everything, I think, but some might have more than others. Yeah. Gorgon?
I do have a similar understanding as well. And I do see archetype as the purest. Well, it's also one of the reading that I've done recently is about archetype as the purest form of energy. And somehow we all relate to some form of those energy in a different way, be it the warrior archetypes, the healer archetypes, the magician, the ranger. So some form or another we have those relatableness in them, but it's being broken down into few levels depending on how much we associate with them. So if let's say when Mother Teresa passed away, even people who do not know Mother Teresa personally, we do feel the connection with her, because I believe Mother Teresa would have a certain kind of archetypes being leaked out from what she does or what she did, and her own character, personality. So that's the relatableness of it.
Yeah. And would she be a healer / queen archetype? What would hers be?
Yeah.
Mother. Like a mother rebirth kind of archetype.
Yeah, mother, heal. Yeah, protector in the same in a way.
Because I think, if I remember right, Jungian had 4. Did he have 4 archetypes or individual? Mother, rebirth, and like the spirit, and like a trickster, and I think surely the father as well. But even the archetypes, a lot of parenting as well, rather than just stories.
Yeah.
And what we see in gods, generally, Greek gods sort of show, or the Norse gods actually as well, show the archetypes quite well.
Yeah. Hey, this.
Oh, sorry, missed you, Alex.
Yeah. Have you got time for one more question, Gorgon?
Well,
as long as it's gold.
Just go ahead. Yeah, one question.
The short question, just shoot down. So what I was wondering was, is it if someone would sort of heavily invest in one facet or archetype, if you will, of their personality, is that perhaps a dangerous thing? So I was wondering, like in your story with the healer archetype and character, was there maybe I was wondering if that was maybe a signal somehow that, if I fully invest in just being a healer, maybe I won't be anything else, or maybe I won't have I don't know, enough enough boundaries to really work that role well, or I don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I believe in moderation, and that's why Paladin, it's for me as a learning point, it's crucial. Um, because you are I think you are right in the sense where if one is fused too much in one identity of them, then it brings psychological rigidity to how that person view the world, that it has to be done in this way. And this is a framework of ACT. So that's the short form for acceptance and commitment therapy, which is something that we can talk about in the future as well. It's is when we being fused with one identity of self in a form where it's not being, controlled or being mindful of. We are shutting down a lot of other flexibility in that sense. So I think, yeah, it can be dangerous.
Super.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be with Gorgon on that. I feel balance, and you could just be just the tank, whatever it might be. But what's your, I guess, intentions and how you go about that, and what else is there besides just this character? And it could be what might be a phase. Someone really needs something to hold on to, and that's fine. But how long it goes for, and it really has to be like contextual. You really have to sit down and understand, because sometimes that's really helpful. That saves people.
Yes.
But it's also different. Sometimes it tips them over and gets them too infatuated that they lose their sense of agency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yes.
Yeah. Just on that point, Simon, I know that we are running out of time. The whole thing of helping us to go through, because I can identify with that. Night is what I have hold on to very tightly in the past, where I need to protect. And as we know, as a therapist, that can be a dangerous mindset as well, because as a therapist, we are not the savior. We are not the we can't go in and save our client full stop, but we are there to facilitate it. And it is through a lot of work actually to unpack why is that night such an important coping concept for me at that time. So for those who listening, you want to unpack it, go to a counselor or a therapist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So to wrap things up, before we wrap things up, any other questions, any other thoughts?
I'm good, thank you. It was a good discussion. I enjoyed talking to you guys and get to know you guys a bit more. I really
Okay.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for the conversations and thanks for sharing a bit more about yourselves. It's cool.
No, it's good to hear everyone's story, because that's where the story begins as well.
Absolutely.
No. So to wrap things up, I have a question for us. Let's share in one sentence or two what can we take away from today's discussion, and let it be a signpost or something that can guide us through this coming week.
Oh, that's a hard one.
What am I taking away from today? What am I taking away? I am taking away. Okay. I'm taking away the reward of conversation, of talking about and reflecting on our own experience, sharing it with someone else, and hearing their perspectives and identifying with those stories.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very insightful.
Yeah.
Alex.
Go, can you go next?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing I can take away from today's conversation, actually two things. The first thing is note to self. slow down when I'm excited. So that's definitely something that I catch myself doing during this podcast. But the second thing is really belongingness and connection is very important, because I think I can safely say for us that three of us at some point in our life, it is the support, the belongingness, the connection that helps us through or whatever that we were going through in the past. Yep. So we
Yeah,
cherish.
definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, you summed it up. Both of you guys summed it up quite accurately. It's the conversating, how we can take that and sort of what inspires us, and what you mentioned as well, Gorgon. What different can I add on to that? I mean, you guys summed it up quite well. I would even say the vulnerability. Like, we did show a bit of vulnerability of the past, but not to get tied up in that or to fall into it, but to acknowledge it, as well as to say, look, I found other areas that helped me as well. And to have that strength to show the vulnerability, but also to say, talk about things that also helped, and about clarification about if there is support that need people listening for this that seek, someone who's a professional who's in the community to help as well. And but yeah, that's totally the thing I've really got out of that, is to open yourself up.
That's good. Thank you. So so this is the end of the first episode of Gamer Counselor podcast. Stay tuned if you like this format of conversation between therapists slash gamers, and leave comments if you want to. We'll be listening. So catch you in the next one. Bye.